I mean another time.
No.
Yep.
King of the world. Once in a rare while, a wondrous power descends to crown me king of the world. I can be anything, do anything, go anywhere, meet anyone. All around my lightning flashes, and life in the smallest detail becomes significant. But alas, my friends grow fearful for themselves, for me, so I'm banished to that grim fortress where bearded magicians smoking pipes exercise their peculiar art to drive the power away. The bubble bursts, the ship sinks, the plane crashes, and I come down hard. It's all for the best, I suppose, but on days like this when I'm dead inside, I remember the power and yearn for the crown.
Okay. So I would like you to just talk as expansively as you can. Because I think you're a man of few words. But the reason I wanted to interview you again is because I've interviewed a lot of MPA people, and everybody tells me that you were like one of the key people, like you were at the heart of the MPA, and that you were very important. And so I came back because, you know, the first time I interviewed, I don't know if you remember, but I think you'd been ill. I think you'd been physically ill, and you weren't in great shape, but you did the interview anyways, and I suspect you did the interview because of how much you care about the MPA, cared about the MPA. So my first question for you is just about how you felt about the MPA and the place the early MPA played in your life in the 1970s.
Well, I like to say that when I first went to MPA, I had just enough self-esteem to get through the door, and that was it. And that's true, I had lousy self-esteem. But pretty soon when I was there, I got feeling better about myself. I found that I could do different things that I hadn't known I could do them before, because it gave me the opportunity to do them, you know. And so we did a lot of speaking engagements, and I worked in all the drop-in centers, and I worked at Riverview twice on a project out there. And I guess I don't see myself as having been that important. I think that the process was really important, you know. But I guess I was important to some extent, or people wouldn't say that, you know. But I don't know, I got a lot of mixed feelings about what happened to MPA and what's happening to it now. And I just don't like it, what happened to it. It was inevitable, I guess, but you know, with more money came more interest in getting the money, and a lot less in what the place was supposed to be about, you know.
So Dave, what was the place supposed to be about?
It was supposed to be about mental patients and mental illness, and getting people better, helping people get better. But that's not what happened. God, they just, the people didn't care much about the place the way we did. I don't know what else I can say about it.
Well, tell me about going to the MPA and how, because it was your ex-wife that told you about
Yes,
the
it was.
MPA, right?
That's right.
And you had you been in Riverview and
Yes, I was in Riverview Hospital, and I got out, and I was living in a rooming house that had all crazy guys in it, different guys with different problems, you know. But none of them was going anywhere good, and I wasn't either. I was absolutely at a loss. They used to send a social worker to see me every couple of weeks, and she brought women's magazines for me to read. That's how useful she was, you know. But Margaret heard about it through the women's movement, I think, and she told me about MPA, and so I decided to go there, just on the off chance I might get something good out of it. And I did, you know, it was really good. Different outfits run differently. Like the way we didn't like CMHA very much, because they run everything by the rules, sort of, and well, they just treated people poorly, I thought. Didn't give us a chance to do anything for ourselves, you know. We did everything was done by holding a little rope and going along with the leader, you know, taking it where you're gonna go. So for a long time we didn't care about MPA. when I did get involved with MPA, it was because it was one organization that was national. It could help us do a national network.
Oh, the Canadian Mental Health Association.
Yes.
But you said, okay, so you said the Canadian Mental Health Association was just like a little rope that you just followed along.
Yes.
But the MPA was different.
It was different, yeah.
So how was it different the way that it ran?
Well, we did everything by meetings pretty well. The thing is, there was enough of us unemployed that we could do meetings, and in those days there were a lot of people that were really quite qualified to do things. They just that they were in a bad spot and they hadn't been able to find anywhere else to go. There was no other resources available very much in those days, so we were a resource to people, and it worked out quite well because some of the people were really talented and really exceptional. Had people with degrees and all kinds of stuff that were going there because there's nowhere else to go.
Can you tell me a little bit about Lanny Beckman?
I don't know much about Lanny. He was there before I was. He started the place. And I guess, well, what I remember about Lanny, the thing was, once I was working at the drop-in center on Trutch, 10th and Trutch, still there. And I had a depressive episode, a bad episode of depression, And he wrote me this wonderful letter, invited me to come back, but not to push it if I didn't want to and stuff like that. And he really understood how I felt, and I was really grateful to him for that.
And do you remember the first time did you go to a drop-in for the first?
Yes.
Do you have a memory of that first time that you went to the MPA?
Yeah, sort of. It was at 10th and Trutch. They used to have in the basement they had meetings, and on the main floor they had a drop-in center and a kitchen, and upstairs they had the office. Upstairs it was all in one location. And I don't know how I remember. I started doing volunteer work, and I would stay there. They used to be open all night, 24 hours. So I would stay there with somebody else that was working there, just to be there in case somebody needed us, And it worked out pretty well.
So you were you, like, what were the different positions that you had at the MPA then?
Well, I was drop-in center coordinator in all the drop-in centers, and I was the manager of the project out at Riverview Hospital, twice.
Okay, I want to talk about other things, but why don't you tell me about the project out at Riverview? Well,
the way that worked was, it didn't do it it was supposed to only get funded once. We got funded twice. We managed to work it out. We got it twice. And the second time, we hired people who were patients in the hospital to work there in the drop-in center, which was really radical. And we did it by election, just like in town. And even during the running of the place, I was accountable to the meeting in town, and so I didn't have a lot of authority. Actually, I could bug people to get them to do things, turn in their rent receipts and whatnot. But if I wanted to change anything much, I had to go to the Vancouver meeting and tell them about it.
So it was pretty rigorously democratic.
It was very democratic.
And why was that important to former mental patients?
Because we were used to being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and all that stuff, and nothing for independence, We had lots of meetings with staff, with hospital staff and doctors and stuff like that, but nothing for ourselves.
So it gave you, that probably helped get your self-esteem.
It did a lot. Because, like I've said before, if you could do something with somebody else and somebody wanted to help you, they would help you. So you could do things together, And we used to do a lot of speaking engagements too, and at that time, speaking engagements weren't common like they are now. But we used to go and talk to schools, students and teachers and that about MPA and what it was about, and what we thought of it and so on.
Do you think that, I get a sense of what the MPA did for patients.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the MPA worked against this kind of stigma and discrimination that mental health patients face?
Yes, I think so. We definitely tried to do that anyway. But, well, I think I told you that before, Barry Cool was opposed to the idea of having mental health teams in the community, because he said it'd be just like the hospital. It'd be staffed, there'd be nurses, there'd be doctors and all that. And he was right, it was like that. But it was also advantageous, you didn't have to go to the hospital all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna see about getting your meds and stuff like that.
And did the MPA work with the local mental health team in Kitsilano and other places?
I think we did to some extent, but not formally,
So it was not a space for mental health professionals.
no.
It was a space for you guys.
Yeah. But most of us were on medication, you know, a lot of us were anyway. That's why when, what's his name started that one program that he started, there was nobody on medication in that program, so it was a very limited program.
The Vancouver Emotional Emergency Center.
Right.
Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
Tell me a bit about it then.
I wasn't involved in it, so I don't really know much about it, but I know that when Earl Krantz flipped out and stabbed a couple of women, a woman who had, I think she'd been to some of those meetings, and she said that the guy, what's his name, Steve?
Oh, is it Tom
Tom Sanborn,
Yeah.
right? That he didn't, he left him hanging, emotionally hanging where he was, and as a result of that, he went and aped out on people.
Mm. Well, it was controversial to have a place where people weren't meant to be on any kind of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. That was pretty controversial. So tell me about the Riverview thing, because I find that very interesting. That's the MPA going outside of the MPA and into the system in a way. And what year was that?
It'd be in the 70s sometime.
Would it be kind of later in the 70s
Yes.
after Lanny left?
Oh, long after Lanny left, yeah.
So you got, was that a LEAP grant
I think so.
to go up to Riverview, and so you worked with patients in Riverview.
Mm-hmm. We would do social work kind of things. We go to people's houses and get their stuff if they were evicted, you know, or just not evicted. If they were put in the hospital, their stuff would get taken sometimes, you know. So we used to go and pick it up for them, bring it back. But it was well, we had an influence on the hospital and on what they did. And for example, one time Fran Phillips and I did a speaking engagement with charge nurses about violence on the wards and how the staff can cause those to happen, you know. Because there was violence on the wards, and it was the staff doing the violence sometimes. Because, well, it's just the way they ran the place, you know, they really ran it badly.
So you were like an assistant to patients, but you were also a patient advocacy.
Yes.
Great. And so that continued at Riverview for you got your funding renewed. You had 2 bouts of funding. So would that have been a year's worth of funding or 2 years worth?
Be a year, I guess.
So 2. Okay. Yeah, that's really, because that was one of the things the pieces that Lanny thought we should look more at for the documentary, is there's a lot of changes in the late 70s at MPA. People see that as negative changes, but Lanny's point was that the MPA started doing some important work as well during that period. So there's sort of negatives
Mixed bag.
a mixed bag. So would you agree with Lanny that as the MPA evolved over the 70s, it was kind of a mixed bag?
Yes.
Do you want to expand on that idea?
Well, there wasn't a fixed policy from MPA about what attitude to take towards psychiatry, for example. So some people really hated psychiatry, and they started calling themselves survivors, you know, and the other people were just patients, you know, and the thing is, we had to rely on them for the medication because the bloody medication worked. To some extent, at least. The reason the hospital emptied out so much, it wasn't because of any radical social change, it was because of medication. And there were people that were anti-psychiatry because they had bad experiences with psychiatry. And there were lots of bad experiences to be had, so it's understandable. But it was a very mixed bag amongst the people themselves about who believed what, and who cared about what.
And was that okay
No, I don't think it was okay.
to have that mixed bag in the?
It was too mixed.
Can you describe what kind of people came to the drop-in?
All kinds of people. There was native guys that came there from the local Indian Center, it was called. Some of those guys were a pain in the ass too. But it was just ordinary people, and sometimes it was people like, there was one guy had a music degree, another one was an architect, another one had an English degree. The people that had quite high resources of their own, you know, but nowhere to go. They couldn't work, but they couldn't go anywhere either. That's why MPA was good for them. And it was different than what it was later on. When now, it seems to me now that mostly at MPA and other places like it, the staff run the place. That's about it.
And the drop-in centers are different now.
Yeah, they are.
Like, you don't get that kind of mixed bag.
No.
Do you want me to get you a glass of water?
Yeah, would you?
Yeah. Tap water?
Tap water's good. What's happening today?
Okay, well, hold on to that thought. Are you recording?
Yeah.
Okay, start with that sentence. Psychosocial rehabilitation.
That's what the the different teams do now. The different organizations do. They do variations on it, but it's all the same thing. And the places are run by the staff. That's all. And places where they have meetings, they don't know how to do them properly. So to get the members involved, you know. Like one time, a friend of mine who worked there, she was a coordinator of advocacy at Kettle, said that when they had meetings with the executive director of the place, the meetings went really well. When they had their own meetings, it didn't go well. There's a reason for that, is they weren't encouraged to do it themselves. And you'd expect the executive director of the place to be able to run a meeting, but she wasn't good at getting other people to run them.
And the MPA, so you're saying that what was important about the MPA was the fact that it was this participatory democracy,
Yes.
right? So it was your organization then?
It was ours.
Didn't belong to anyone else?
No.
And so everyone who came to the meetings would have felt that they had a stake.
I don't know how they would have felt, but they did have a stake. Like, we had lots of time for meetings because none of us was working, you know, so we had meetings about everything. Oh, jeez.
Do you want to have another sip of water?
Yeah, I think I will.
Just take a minute. So I wanted to ask you about the nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really didn't ask enough people about Nutshell the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was, I think it was as important, in some ways, it was important too.
Mm-hmm.
But can you talk a little bit about how, about the Nutshell?
Well, people would get together and put it together. Like, people that didn't know anything about printing or anything, but they learned to, how to do it. And they would put the thing out. And I guess it was good because they weren't very critical. Like, they put anybody's stuff that's in there that wanted to be in, like that. But I think it was good for some people who weren't mental patients to read the stuff that was in that and get copies of it. I think they spread it around pretty well. But for me, it was good because I found out that I could write. Not just poetry, but stories, or not stories, but information. Like that. I could write good. Like, once they wanted to edit an article that I'd done. They wanted to edit it down for size. They found out they couldn't do it. If they did, it would spoil the whole thing. So I got to be pretty good at writing, and I was grateful for that.
So So you're saying that people outside of that mental health world would read the nutshell?
Yeah, I'm sure they did. It's a funny thing too. I was one time, I was going to a mental health center in New Westminster. This would be around 1982 or so. And the psychologist there had a copy of a poem that I'd written years before. He kept it on his desk. I'd written it years before for the nutshell, and he got hold of it and took it out and put it on his desk.
Because it spoke to him.
It did in some way, yes. I don't remember what it was about now.
Well, you know, when I read King of the World, I just thought, this is a really neat poem. Because this is a message about being crazy that is unacceptable today. Because you're not supposed to say it's a fun state to be at, right? You're supposed to be, that's that psychosocial rehabilitation message. And King of the World is a different message.
That is.
So, should we try you reading it one more time for the camera now we've got it working properly?
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, can you just take your time, read it nice and slow, Dave.
Yeah, I will.
That's what my dad would say if he was here.
Your dad?
Yeah, my dad, well, he's not here anymore, but he
He's
always
dead?
said, yeah, he's dead. But he always said you had to read things slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try to read it slowly. Just the thing is, I've read it so many times.
I know.
I just race through to get it
Not
done.
just for me, no, just take your time.
Okay, King of the World. Once in a rare while, a wondrous power descends to crown me King of the World. I can be anything, do anything, go anywhere, meet anyone. All around my lightning flashes, and life in its smallest detail becomes significant. But alas, my friends grow fearful for themselves, for me. So I'm banished to that grim fortress where bearded magicians smoking pipes exercise their peculiar art to drive the power away. The bubble bursts, the ship sinks, the plane crashes, and I come down hard. It's all for the best, I suppose, but on days like this, when I'm dead inside, I remember the power and yearn for the crown.
That's great. Thank you. It's good.
Yeah.
And you'll find that when you go through in a nutshell, you'll find his poem with kind of this funky graphic, this kind of demonistic looking. Do you remember that?
No, I remember one they did, they screwed up the poem, they took the scansion out of it by putting a diagram there.
Yeah.
And I spoiled it. But they used it for good stuff afterwards. It was in that booklet that they gave out for
Yes.
people, the information booklet.
Yeah.
It was in that.
Yeah. Is that, was that, into the 80s or something like that? I can't
I
remember.
can't remember either.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got a copy of that. Somebody gave that me a copy. So, you've talked about how the MPA functioned. Can you tell us the story about how the MPA got started? The founding story?
I don't know. See, it was already going when I went there. It had been going for a year. And so it was already happening. But I don't know what to say about that.
Okay. Well, you don't have to say anything. There's just, it seems that there's, because Lanny's told me the story. And Jackie Hooper, you know what you know who you talked about, who I know was a really important person for you?
Who's that?
Fran
Oh
Phillip.
yeah, Fran.
So, we're re-interviewing you. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about Fran? Because I know she was important to you, and she's very important to the MPA.
She was.
And we can't interview her, right?
That's
so
right.
her story should be part of the record.
Well, Fran was very radical. She got a degree in nursing science, and they shuffled her out of her job because she was too radical for them. So she went to MPA and got a job there. And her degree was useful for a lot of different things. One of them was when we were on speaking engagements. If she was along with her degree, we'd get $20. If she wasn't, if it was just a regular bunch of us, we wouldn't get paid at all. But she was very good at helping people and getting people to be more independent. she'd tell them what to do, how to do things better than they were doing them and stuff like that. She was really good. For me, started out, I used her just as a resource, you know. I first saw her come through the door at the Trush place, and she seemed to know what she was talking about, you know, which some people didn't. And so I asked her questions, like I asked her about how to deal with worrying. I used to worry so much that my hands were all blisters. And she said what did she say? She said to think, if I was thinking of something negative, really negative, it would happen a lot, to stop myself and make myself think something positive as well. And that's a small thing, but it was a big thing for me, because nobody ever told me anything like that before. And it worked.
She's practical.
She was very practical.
Yeah. So it seems to me like one thing that Fran brought to the MPA was a bit like that the MPA was fairly chaotic.
Yes.
But that she brought a little bit more order to the MPA.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
She worked in the houses always then. I worked in the drop-in center, but we would see each other at meetings and stuff. She was very good, like she helped me with a lot of stuff. One time I had a marriage on the rocks, and she came in and talked to my ex-wife, and I don't know, she's a really good person.
Okay. Now, can you describe the process of getting elected for a job at the MPA?
2 weeks before, people would run around trying to curry votes from people, you know, and then they would vote. And one of the characters that was voted on was none of the above. You know, we always said if that won, we know we were in good shape, you know, but it never did. But it became a personality competition almost. And like for the people who didn't really care about the place, who cared about the job, they were most like that. They sucked up to people. And well, it just wasn't good.
Was it good in the beginning?
Yes, it was. It was good. It was good in the beginning. It got worse as time went on. See, money killed the place. Because they got more money, then they could hire more staff, and you get more people interested in just in doing the job rather than what it was supposed to be about, you know.
And I know that there was some tension within the organization between people who had been patients in the system and non-patients and their access to those waged jobs. Did you want to speak to that?
I quit MPA in 1980 because I was working at Riverview managing that project, and there was one guy in town who'd been in hospital for 2 weeks. He's a jerk, this guy too, but anyway, he was the only one. There were no other ex-patients working out of 20-odd staff. And so I raised it as an issue, and I resigned my job because of that. And we had a big war there. And some other people resigned, like Fran resigned, and some other people resigned as well. And we won a sort of Pyrrhic victory where they said that they would accept half of the people being ex-patients, but I knew it could never happen because they weren't training anybody. So it wouldn't have worked anyway. And I think the union made a big difference too, because they treated the place like a regular place. And it wasn't, you couldn't have people running for election every 6 months, you know.
So when did the union come in?
I don't know, around 1980, something like that.
What union is it?
I'm not sure who it was at first. It's I'm not sure. It was CUPE, I think, at first,
Okay.
but I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in it.
Okay. Because there were also changes, were there not changes with the shift from federal like LIP and LEAP grants to provincial ongoing funding from Ministry of Health and Ministry of Human Resources? Didn't did they want, I understood that the ministry said, we can't deal with this with this democratic organization that's run by meetings. You need to put in, like, I don't know, did they say board of directors or something?
Yeah, they're supposed to have it, so we had a board of directors, by name only. Certain, Lanny would be the president, say, for example. Jerry Walker would be the treasurer. He was anyway, but they were still all coordinators, you know, and if you phoned up there to talk to somebody and you'd ask to talk to the president or something, they'd say, oh, you want the office manager, or office coordinator rather, and they would talk to them that way. So we managed to get along in spite of that aspect of the funding. But the funding made a difference, that's for sure.
Yeah. The organization just got bigger, right?
Got much bigger.
And more
traditional.
And do you think that just happens with organizations? Was the MPA just got too successful, or I don't know?
I guess so. I don't know how to describe it. But it lost its power anyway. Now it's just another drop-in center. And they got some good things they do too, for housing and whatnot. That's good, you know. It's all right, but it's not. It's psychosocial rehabilitation. It's not independent living or anything like that.
So, one of the things that I think that would be nice if we talked about in the documentary is to say, okay, so these are the in a way this is the legacy, or this is how, you know, that if you were indeed king of the world, right? Mm-hmm. And you wanted to recreate the MPA, or what would be the core thing that you think? What's the most important thing about the MPA?
The people ran it themselves, had meetings and decided what to do about various things. For example, they had a few rules, all right, but if you go to the MPA, at least when I went there the last time, which was a long time ago now, they had a whole set of rules right on the door, posted on the door about what to happen if there's a fight or whatever. What we used to do was different than that. They would have, if there was a fight, say, in the drop-in center, the coordinator would stop it and get help from other people to stop it too, and then they would have a meeting with whoever was there about what to do about this thing. Should the person be banned? Should they get punished in some other way, you know? Sometimes, very rarely, they ban somebody for life, but usually not. So it was good like that, because you for one thing, it was less fearful, you know, if you're part of a group like that, and they're dealing with the situation, then you're getting dealt with too, and it's all right, you know. You don't have to be afraid.
And whose ideas were all those? That way of doing things.
I don't know.
But it's just that starting group.
It's just a starting group, I guess.
Yeah. How are we doing for?
We've got just under 3 minutes.
Well, why don't you
Stop it and
stop it and start it, and I'll just. So, did you have much to do with the houses? Can you describe what they were like?
I can't really. Fran worked in one of the houses, all of the houses when she was there, different times in different houses. I think they were pretty good. People voted on the staff that worked there, too. You know, so that was kind of different. But the people in the houses didn't have as much to do with the drop-in center as the drop-ins did, of course. And I didn't like the houses for myself to live in. I wouldn't live in one, because I figured there's enough that I hang out in this place now, but also being in one of the houses, you know. But I think it was good. I think it helped a lot of people. They got in there and they were obliged to do chores and stuff like that, to do a little bit of involvement in the place itself. But they weren't I don't know, they just more independent. But depended on, a lot on the person that was running the house, the staff that was running the house, how good that was or how bad it was, you know.
And how many houses were there?
I think there were 7 at one point.
That's really successful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, MPA was phenomenally successful.
I guess so, yeah.
So you talked a little bit about the anti-psychiatry and then people who, you know, there was this range of opinions. So did people, was that a topic of discussion at the MPA?
I think it was sometimes. It got much worse at the end. That got more polarized, you know. But it just came out in attitudes, you know, that people had towards things. And for sure the survivors, they were anti-psychiatry usually. And that could be unreasonable too, not just reasonable. Because like I said, you know, if it wasn't for the medication, we'd all be in hospital still.
Now I'm wondering what else I wanted to ask you about. I think we've covered quite a bit. And the one thing we haven't, you talked a little bit about deinstitutionalization, but I also think that the MPA was very much of the 70s, right? Like it was a real early 70s
Yeah.
movement, and I wondered if you wanted to speak to that a bit.
Not really, I guess it's just the way it was, you know. You couldn't have done it in the 80s. No, because you have the unions to deal with and you have the psychosocial rehabilitation to deal with, you know. It's just different now, that's all.
Yeah. I mean, it came out of that same era as the women's movement and
Yeah, that's right,
civil rights and all that stuff.
that's right.
Yeah, Tom Sanborn talked a bit about that in his interview,
Mm-hmm.
about that whole alternative Vancouver community.
Yes.
So I think in your other interview you talked a little bit about your early life, but would you like to recount that? Were you born in Toronto?
Yes.
So what year were you born?
No, 42.
I think you're the same age as Lanny then.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, I think he's 42 too.
No. 1942.
1942. No, he's 60.
7.
He's 68. But yeah.
68, yeah.
Oh man, maybe he's 60. Anyways,
60
Yeah.
something.
60 something. Later 60s, but not 70.
No.
So, do you want to just tell that piece of your life before the MPA? So, you're born in 1942 in Toronto.
Oh, I did a lot of different things for a living, and I had my one job experience of being turned down for being a mental patient. I told them at the place I was going to get a job working rolling out felt on a table. And I told them that I'd been in the hospital and they didn't hire me because of that. So I never told anybody after that.
When was that?
That'd be in the early 70s, just before I came out here.
So, did you have mental health difficulties in Toronto?
Yes.
And were you in the Queen Street or?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't in that hospital. I was in one in London, Ontario, a veterans hospital.
And then you came out to Vancouver.
Yeah.
So were you in the army then?
Yeah, I was in the army too. A couple of years. Big mistake.
And then you came out to Vancouver, and was that where you were married then?
I was already married when I came out.
Okay.
Then I got divorced twice. So I was divorced 3 times by the time I was 35. I always say that, but it's true.
You got divorced lately?
Not lately.
Not
no.
lately. 3 times is enough.
That's what I
Dave.
thought.
I'm trying to think of what else you want to talk about. I don't want to miss anything. So you've talked about Riverview, and that's important. You talked about the drop-in. What else did we talk about the last time? You read the poem the last time. You talked about the nutshell. You talked about Fran and the work that you did with her subsequent to the MPA. Well, since I've got this opportunity to talk to you, and it's not about the MPA, well, it is in a way, because I think that the MPA, you did interesting things in mental health after the MPA.
Yes.
So, would you like to speak to that? Because do you think that the work that you did around mental health after the MPA, how was that connected to what you learned from the MPA when you were there?
Well, it just was. There were a lot of people at the time that we started the network, trying to start the network anyway. There were a lot of people that wanted it, and that had independent thinking like we did. And that's how they ended up getting a thing, partly anyway. And it just happened, it was the time in the life of CMHA National where they hired people like social, not social workers, but what do you call those guys that organize communities?
Well, like people like David Revel?
Yeah, David Revel will be one, but he didn't work for CMHA though.
But he served on something with you. What did he serve on? Some national...
It was the network, I guess.
Maybe it was the network. So I guess I just want you to say something about, because it seems to me like you graduated from the MPA and took those lessons and went somewhere else, and I'd love to hear you speak to that.
Well, I wasn't, I was in favor of getting CMHA to help with this thing because they're the only national organization that existed. And you have to have a national organization to make a national network. You can't just do it out of thin air, you know. But I wasn't sure how independent thinking they'd be in terms of dealing with this stuff. If they would try to run the show or what the hell. They didn't though. They were really good. They were in a period where, what the heck do you call those guys?
Are you thinking community organizers?
Yeah, that's right. Community organizers. They hired a community organizer too. And they were good. Like they were just into coming out, having meetings with us and bringing us back and having us make decisions about what to do with the network, you know. So that's what we did.
So were you able to take some of the ideas from the MPA to the national scene?
Oh, sure. The thing is, I couldn't operate without MPA. I was involved in MPA so much that I wouldn't be doing anything else, you know. If I was elsewhere, I'd be just doing the same thing, only in a different location, you know.
When you traveled, because you would have traveled across Canada with setting up the network, what did people know about the MPA?
No. Usually not.
Because David Revel said to me that the MPA was really important elsewhere for inspiring
Yes,
people.
it was. That term, consumers and mental health services, I think I told you that before, we gave that name to ourselves because there was staff and there was volunteers working there, and we wanted to be separate from those, you know, so we came up with this term for ourselves called consumers and mental health services. That was involved with the network. Well, it passed on and got over onto the other project, which wasn't a network, it was different. And they started using it. Now the term has been totally abused from what it was. They talk mental health consumers. I keep saying it's ridiculous. If we were mental health consumers, we wouldn't be here today talking about it. we'd be doing it, So it's not mental health consumers, it's consumers of mental health services. That's the one label that stuck out of that whole thing.
From the network.
Yeah.
And at the MPA, you called yourselves, well, some
Mental
people call them
patients.
mental patients. Yeah.
See, I didn't know that Kathy Batten, the woman that died, who used to keep a history of the nutshell and stuff, she said that they decided on that name in a funny kind of way. It wasn't political like I thought it was. I thought they said we're the mental patients to be upfront about it, But it wasn't that, it was something else. I don't know, I wish he was around to tell me.
Lanny said that Stan Persky thought of it, and it was supposed to be kind of an in-your-face kind
It
of.
was, yeah.
Well, that's what Lanny said.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was too.
Yeah.
Seemed like it would be anyway.
How many more minutes have we got?
7.
Oh, okay. Dave, is there other stuff that you want to say about the MPA?
I didn't like what happened to it, it got to be, well, it got to lose its power as far as I was concerned. And there's a lot of people I don't like that are involved with it now still. People that you've interviewed even.
I know.
That I don't care for.
You're a man of strong opinions, Dave.
Yeah.
But I think you brought that to the MPA because you cared about the MPA.
Yeah, I cared about it, all right.
You must feel proud of it. I mean, things changed, but you were part of something that made a difference, right?
Yes, it was. I don't think about it that much. Until you came along, I hadn't thought about it for years. I haven't worked for years. I tried to deal with my depression, and it's been very hard.
Yeah.
So now I find myself in this situation, which is really crappy in a lot of ways. It's rules up the arm in this fucking place, and they didn't tell me that when I was going to get involved in it. They didn't tell me that part. They just said, you get a free supper, and you got free laundry machines and stuff. They didn't tell me about the rules that go with it, which are quite a few.
This is Coast, isn't it?
This is the coast, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not a big rules guy.
I'm not.
No. So the MPA worked for you.
It did work for me, yeah. But I got no choice. I got to stay here because I need to be close to Commercial Drive so I can walk there.
Yeah.
But I don't like it. People say, how do you like the new place? I don't like it really.
It's a nicer location than your old place.
Well, that's why I took it.
And it's, it's brighter and it feels brighter
Yeah,
than
it
your
is.
old place. But yeah. Wasn't the old place a Coast one too?
No.
No. Okay.
It was independent.
Oh, it was just a private.
It was, Coast sponsored it.
Right.
Coast, it's a subsidy, right? And it was, Coast provided the subsidy.
Right.
And with the subsidy came a staff person who would come every couple of weeks and do something with me, go shopping or something like that.
Okay.
I missed the guy. He was a good head. We knew each other for 10 years.
Were you there for 10 years?
11.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. On McLean.
Yeah, on McLean
Yeah.
Drive.
I went past there on the way here today. So, just wait, I'm just thinking back. So I just want to pick up one step back in that conversation about you being proud of the MPA. Because I think you should feel proud of the MPA because it did important things.
Mm-hmm.
And you were a key person in the organization. You were there for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm. I was there for 8 years. That's why it was very hard when it broke up. It was very hard on me emotionally, because we really felt for it. Did something I don't know anybody's ever done before. I got them to allow me to live with another ex-patient woman without her losing her income. She still kept getting her income. They don't do that very often, I don't think.
Was that the MPA? Somehow did that?
That was when we had the MPA war was going on. She was on our side of it, But we wanted to live together for support. but we wanted to have our money just the same, you know, and they let us do it. Don't know why, they wouldn't do it now, that's for sure, I'll bet you.
Well, the MPA, it didn't, like you said, it didn't always play by the rules,
No, that's right.
and it was able to deal with different situations, I think.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
It's like that small scale participatory democracy community organization.
Lanny left fairly early on. It was too bad because I thought he was really good, Lanny, you know, but I think he had trouble with the people that worked there too. I don't know why he left.
I think it was emotional difficulties.
Could be.
Don't really think it was the MPA. I think it was stuff that was going on with
His own stuff, yeah.
Yeah, his own stuff.
One thing I learned from Lanny Beckman was I didn't know him very well at all, but he always came to the meetings with a briefcase and he was prepared for whatever he was going to present. You know, he was organized to do it. I always admired that. You know, because it's different than just going and shooting off your mouth.
Well, this has been great. I feel like you were much better shape today. You spoke so well today, Dave.
Thank you.
You really did credit to the history of the organization.